What's up, natural resource consuming people of YouTube? So I'm gonna talk to you guys about Russia, Ukraine, the United States, this entire war that's happening, and why it's happening, or what seems to be the real reason behind the things that are transpiring over there. First off, I'm gonna start off by saying my opinion, which is that I've always believed that the United States and Russia are the closest allies from any country, any two countries on the planet. A lot of people can give me examples to the contrary. I'm just gonna remind you of World War One, World War Two. We were both on the same side. The Cold War, we were all doing the same exact shit. It's like two best friends competing, you know? Now, most of the world got split into two after World War II, and it became a predominantly US superpower based and the Soviet Union superpower based, right? And what does that actually fucking mean? What does that mean? All it really means is that one country has dominance over a particular area of the world, and they are both the suppliers, the consumers of goods and services. So the Americas are obviously the United States. Eastern Europe is partially United States. And Russia does China, India, and I guess you could say parts of East Europe as well. So in today's age, like we keep hearing about, Germany is 40% dependent on Russian fossil fuels, right? Now, if you were to take a look at the European map, right? East Europe, you look at the population of people that live there, right? And then you look up a map of how much of oil and gas does Russia supply those areas. Things kind of start making sense, right? So Russia's half of its supply goes to Eastern Europe, the other half goes to the Asias. Now, when Ukraine started, we can talk about a lot of reasons why Ukraine happened. But to me, it seems like it was predetermined. Ukraine was not buying any oil or gas from Russia. Now, after the COVID situation happened, a lot of countries became poorer than they were. They were less off than they were, including us, the United States. Now, during Biden's term, a lot of interesting things happened. Biden started wanting to open up oil reserves in the United States and start pumping oil and supplying oil to Europe and whatnot, right? But in order to do that, it needed to get Russia as the supplier out of the picture, right? So, being friends, you can't just be like, hey, I'm gonna take over your business, bro. You have to kind of give them something in return. Ukraine was a problem for Russia for a while in terms of its politics, not the people, because the Ukrainian people and the Russian people are very similar, and Russia has always viewed Ukraine as a part of it. It's an extension of Russia, just the same way the United States looks at Canada and even Mexico. They're extensions of the United States, you know. So Ukraine has something about 50 million people. Germany has about 50 million people, give or take, you know. Now, Russia's supplying 40% to 50% of gas and oil to Germany alone, okay? Now, if it cuts those ties, and start supplying 100% to Ukraine, that would not only make up for, go ahead, my bad. That would not only make up for the loss of business in Germany, but of Britain, of a bunch of the places, okay? All you have to do is just take a look at the amount it's supplying to Europe, right? It could fill a large gap just supplying 100% of oil and gas to Ukraine. The rest gets siphoned off to China. China's more than happy to take gas and oil from Russia. Meanwhile, the United States steps in and fills in the gap and delivers oil and gas to Germany and to the other countries there. So it's kind of becoming obvious that like the battle lines of like who's gonna control what part of the world, because it's not only about supply and demand, it's not only about goods and services, it's also about long-lasting control, right? You want to have control over countries, especially when you're talking about large countries or large connected countries. Like, for example, if China went haywire and decided to go like fucking Hitler, it would be a giant catastrophe. That could turn to a World War type scenario. You know what I'm saying? India, with its population, like those two countries alone are like half the fucking world. So you have to try and control these countries through other means, whether it be through electricity, whether it be through agriculture, whether it be through oil and gas, whether it be through fresh drinking water, whether it be through any fucking means necessary. Meanwhile, in the United States, we're trying to jump off fossil fuels and do the electric car shit. At the same time, we're trying to get other countries dependent on our oil and gas reserves. So this is just a scrimmage of Russia and America deciding, you know what, look, we're gonna change the lines up of, you know what, I was controlling about this much, now I want to come in this much, you take this area, I'll take this area, and you go ahead and just cross the fucking street, brother. Don't yell at me, motherfucker. It's a green light and you're crossing, bro. Just cross the fucking street, homeboy. Like, for real, it's a green fucking light, bro. This motherfucker, bro. So, anyways, that's the type of craziness we gotta deal with in LA. So, in terms of the line of like scrimmage and shit, it's like that's essentially what it's about. It's about controlling like one part to another part, right? Now, it seems that's what's taking place. It's becoming abundantly clear that's what it's about. I think we're gonna figure out a lot more shit as time passes by. But that really seems to be my opinion of fucking what's really actually happening over here, you know? Now, mind you, at the same time that, and I'm sorry I flipped out on that guy, I didn't like him yelling at me. Mind you, at the same time that gas prices, these, if you're the supplier of oil and gas, cheap oil and gas is not what you're aiming for. You'd rather sell the same amount of oil and gas at a higher price, right? Like, look at the United States. Look at this gas, man. In LA, it's $6.19 for premium. That's what I fill up in my Beamer. Okay, and that's cheap. $6.19 hit like $7 in some places, dude. Fucking wait. we're talking about like United States is sitting on one of the largest reserves and has some of the largest oil things where like we could keep on pumping, including fracking and all that shit, right? By the way, if oil goes below $80 a barrel, fracking goes out the window. It's not feasible financially. A barrel of oil has to be above $80 a barrel for fracking to be financially sustainable. So $100, $120 a barrel of oil, America's happy about that. We can keep on fracking and all that shit and get all kinds of shit, right? So do you think it's a coincidence that America's sitting on one of the largest reserves, and yet we're paying some of the highest prices in oil ever? This is probably the highest we've ever paid. Now, mind you this as well. So, prior to 9/11, right? Just before we went to war with Iraq, we had the lowest oil prices, man. We were paying something like almost close to $2, $3, like a gallon in LA. I know that's not the national standard across America. California pays a lot of money in terms of gasoline compared to everybody else, but at that point it was the lowest it was. Now, as soon as we hit Iraq and Iran, like the first things we did is we made sure to take control of oil and gas immediately. Our soldiers were on it. That's the first thing we took. We were like, this dude is not about to blow it up like he did in I forgot where, fucking when he blew up all the oil for like a year. It was raining oil and shit. So we took our oil, right? And what happened? Prices of oil and gas jumped up to like $5, man, in LA. Immediately, as soon as we hit Afghanistan and took control, oil and gas prices rose. Was that because America went over there to drop the price of oil, or we went over there to raise the price of oil? You decide based on what actually happened, right? Now, a lot of people also don't know what kind of caused the collapse of 2000. Now, Al-Qaeda at the time, they took over all the fucking poppy fields, and they decided to destroy all the poppy fields. What most people don't realize is Afghanistan's annual GDP, 50% of that GDP is opium, like poppy plants. 50% of the fucking country's GDP. And when Al-Qaeda decided, fuck that, we're not gonna poison our people, we're just gonna cut down all this shit. Well, do you know who the number one purchaser of all that shit was? It was us, the United States, right? So suddenly you had like this almost $1 trillion industry just collapse overnight. It crashed our stock market, and therefore we had to go over there and handle business. Doesn't matter how we did it, but we did it. And the first things we did was take control of the oil, gas, and poppy fields. Don't take my word on anything I fucking say. Google it. It's right there for you to see. You can do Afghanistan, US soldiers, poppy fields. Google images. And you're gonna see Afghanis working poppy fields with US soldiers protecting them. Think about that. Right? So the world is not as black and white as people think it is, man. It doesn't operate in the way people think it should. You know, like people live with a certain morality, and they think that government has to operate with those same morals and ethics, when in reality government doesn't have to and shouldn't have to operate with those same morals and ethics. And the reason why is government has a monopoly on almost everything. Government is the largest corporation in the country. Like in the United States, the largest corporation is the United States Corporation. Okay? It has a monopoly on oil and gas, on electricity, on anything military based. If it's violence in terms of military violence, in terms of police violence, in terms of protection, in terms of police, in terms of incarceration, in terms of education, in terms of everything, the country has a monopoly on all of it, on all of it, because a country's or a government's role is essentially like 2-3 things, and those 2-3 things are, it needs to provide you assurance of safety, meaning you're not gonna get kidnapped, you're not gonna get killed, okay, for the most part, right? Like, that is part of life. So for the most part, it's gonna guarantee a certain level of protection, like the mob, right? So then the second thing it has to do is create the international ties necessary so that goods and services could come in, especially in raw form, for thereafter people can then conduct business. Like if you're producing fucking tires, you need rubber to come in. It is very difficult for you as an individual to go to a country that produces rubber, convince them to sell to you and not to another country that's powerful like China or Russia, right? To convince them that, no, sell it to me. It's easier for the United States government to step in and be like, hey, you're gonna sell us rubber, motherfucker. And they do it, you know? So then you take that rubber and then all these cars have rubber. I don't know if you've ever been to other countries, but tires aren't easy to come by in a lot of countries. I'll tell you that much. So that's the second part of government, is to give you the opportunity for you to then pursue your happiness through business, right? Because business is essentially the lifeline of all people. Like, that's how you eat. You don't go hunter-gatherer fucking food. You go to a grocery store. You know? You go to a supermarket and pick off shit off the shelves. So I hope this was some type of insightful for you guys. Mind you, all this shit is off the top of my head. So when I speak numbers, I'm like guesstimating, like, so give or take that motherfucker, you know? The things I say, they're pretty accurate, but it's not as if, like, if I were to sit down and write this shit for you guys, it'd be so much more accurate, so much more thought out, so much more information to make my point a lot more clear. But I don't want to do that. I want to be off the top of my head. This is the way I feel like doing it. So this is the way I'm doing it, and I hope you guys get what I'm saying. And me talking about Russia and Ukraine, it sounds like I'm speaking very cold about it, like no emotions attached, because I'm trying to look at it unemotionally, right? The way government looks at shit. They don't give a fuck if 1,000 people die, bro. You know, there's another like 300 million they gotta worry about. They don't give a fuck. It's about the final result. That's what it's about. So my heart goes out to anybody that suffers anywhere in the world. You know, I'm not a cold motherfucker like that, you know, but that doesn't mean that I don't see through bullshit, you know. That doesn't mean I see all bullshit, but fucking I see through some of the bullshit, and it's becoming abundantly clear that this entire war was about natural resources and who gets to supply who with these natural resources. I'm gonna end this one on that note. You guys have a nice day. Don't be like that crazy motherfucker trying to cross during a green light, and if someone stops and lets you pass because it's better you cross in front of a stopped car than moving cars. I think that's just common sense of self-preservation. Take the safest fucking route, or be smart. Don't be a fucking retard and wait for the green walking symbol for you to cross the fucking main street. You guys have a nice day. Peace. By the way, in LA, I think we have some of the finest fire trucks on the fucking planet and some of the finest first responders on the planet. These machines have always just wowed me, man. That dude in the back, he can steer the rear wheels. So if he can make a sharp turn like into a small street, so the driver in the front, turns in, the driver in the back turns out and then turns in, and they can go into small spaces with that giant fucking red shiny fire truck, man. Beautiful machines. And firemen are the shit. They've saved my life. They've saved my dad's life. So shout out to you firemen, and you first responders and doctors and nurses. You people are the shit. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. You guys are the few people that are actually doing some fucking good in this world. You're not just selling a fucking Twinkie at the corner store. You're actually, I feel like you guys have a job that is actually doing some good in the world amongst all the fucking craziness of it. Peace.